Remember, kids, safety first.
Alright, go ahead.
Alright. So I have a 4-inch nose cone. And normally on nose cones, they give you these tiny little plastic tabs, which you might think is a good idea to put your harness for your recovery system, but it's a terrible idea. Don't ever do that. You want to go ahead and get a forged eye bolt that's closed off. You got to make sure this whole region's closed. If it's open, no good. So I'm going to actually drill out a hole for this nose cone. We have a little insert that we use the eye bolt for. We're going to put that in there with some epoxy and then screw in this guy, epoxy it down because it's never coming out. We want to make sure the nose cone's always attached to the recovery system. And the rest of the rocket. I need my cert. So we're going to work on this drill press here and get started. Alright, so I drilled out my hole, but it doesn't quite fit, and I'm really looking for a press fit. I want to make sure that it's as tight as possible, even without the epoxy. So I'm slowly stepping up my drill sizes just to make sure that I don't accidentally go too high on the drill size. So I start off small, I'm going to keep going until it finally fits in there.
So you want to go explain what you do?
Alright, so we got rock epoxy, which is supposed to be like super fancy epoxy. And basically, I'm going to take my eye bolt. It's got this little insert here so I can thread it in. This little guy, you can see that. And I'm going to have it attached to the eye bolt. And I'm going to put a blob of rock epoxy right here. And then I'm going to push this in until it's sitting flush, and then unscrew this guy out and let the rock epoxy cure. That way I can thread it out and thread it back in. And when I thread it, I'll probably put rock epoxy as well because I'm never going to take it out. I'll never have a reason to. Alright, nice and mixed. Alright, so we got the insert in there. It took a little effort. We were like jiggling around. I ended up taking the nose cone and just kind of giving it some elbow grease. And then once the insert was flush, I took some of the rock epoxy and put it on the threads of the bolt, and I just kind of threaded it in. It actually worked out pretty nice. Even though this side's messy, that was when I put the insert. But you'll notice this side is really clean, and I got a nice blob on top. So as it threaded in, it pushed all the excess epoxy to the very top, and I just kind of got it to where it's mechanically tight in the threads. Now the epoxy is going to set, and hopefully that really holds onto the eye bolt pretty well, and won't shred out of the nose cone. That was a pretty good technique. Try it out yourself if you want, or let me know if you got a better way of doing it. I'm just doing what I think looks good and probably works well. We're going to try Andy's next.
So what I'm going to do now is like doing my nose cone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use sandpaper and sand the inside of the nose cone so that the epoxy has a nice grip to it. So now we have the insert. I didn't put the bolt all the way in because what I plan to do is to put a small amount of epoxy in here, push it in, and then use a hammer to smash it in.
Yeah, that's probably better than my elbow grease method. epoxy for mine. What are you gonna be doing?
I'll be using thread lockers for my boats. I do intend on using some Hot Wheels for future projects, so I want things to easily remove in and out. Now, I'm going to be using thread lockers for strength and so that it doesn't untwist should I move it or should vibration happens.
Probably a better method than the epoxy method. So let's go ahead and check it out and see how it's done.
And now it's going to go towards the end. So once I push this in,
So this is the motor mount tube. It is a 54 millimeter, well, size for a 54 millimeter Cicerone motor. Our motor casing will go in here and it'll fit up nicely, but it'll make more sense once I start putting things together. So I have my centering rings. These are G10, 1/8 of an inch thick. I want some really thick, strong stuff because I plan on running bigger motors and I don't want this to start going without the rocket. So we want something that's really sturdy. Now, you'll notice my other centering ring actually has a notch in it. I actually filed that down. There's a reason for that. So I'm doing a different recovery system from Andy. I didn't want to buy electronics and I wanted to go the cheap route. So I'm actually doing a piston recovery system. What that means is we're going to have a tubular strap here that goes in between the centering ring. And then that's going to epoxy down onto the tube. We're going to put some epoxy there and hold it down with some masking tape. Then the end of this piece is actually going to go to a piston that will sit on top. So our ejection charge will push that piston and go through the airframe and eject our recovery system, or our parachute in this case. So it's a different way of doing recovery. I think it's a cheaper way, and I did it on the Callisto. It worked great. I'm going to try it on a bigger size and see how it works out. So we'll test it out. But first, I'm going to epoxy this strap down and then get the centering ring epoxied on. And then we'll put that into the airframe and get that epoxied in. So we'll definitely be closer to getting something that looks like a rocket in the next few hours.
I am.
Look at this. Let me look. All right, look. So we got cream icing for our cinnamon rolls, and we got delicious peanut butter for our sandwiches. We're gonna put the two together and make awesome epoxy. That's the ingredients for rocket epoxies.
Alright.
Okay.
When someone took your key and you needed it badly.